We're halfway through the NASCAR regular season. Let's take a look at the playoff bubble and see if there are any surprises on either side of the cut line. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. It's North Wilkesboro All-Star Week. That's exciting, but it's also officially the halfway point of the NASCAR regular season, or at least the Cup Series regular season. 13 races in, 13 races to go until the 16-driver playoff field is set. We'll talk about that in just a moment. First, this episode is sponsored by the Moonshine and Motorsports Trail. I will be at North Wilkesboro Speedway this weekend. It's an official stop on the Moonshine and Motorsports Trail. If you're coming on Sunday, be sure to stop by the Moonshine and Motorsports Trail display at 3 p.m. I'll be there. You can come say hi. It should be pretty easy to spot. I believe they'll have a big Brennan Poole show car wrapped there. So yeah, come find me. 3 p.m. Sunday, I'll be there. And speaking of my friend Brennan Poole, yes, Moonshine and Motorsports are sponsoring his Xfinity Series car at Charlotte the following week. I hope you've been keeping up with my Moonshine and Motorsports Trail video series. I'll put a link to the full playlist down in the description below. We still have a couple of videos left to go. The self-guided trail includes stops at the NASCAR Hall of Fame, Charlotte Motor Speedway, North Wilkesboro Speedway, the North Carolina Museum of History, a couple of nature trails, state parks, Rockingham Speedway. If you're coming to North Carolina to visit some race shops, or if you're coming to one of these upcoming races, or maybe you're planning a visit for next fall, be sure to take a trip around many of the Moonshine and Motorsports Trail stops. I'll put a link down in the description below. You can learn a whole lot more about the Moonshine and Motorsports Trail. And once again, be sure to check out my latest video series where I've been going around and visiting many of their destinations. Thanks to Moonshine and Motorsports for supporting the show. Let's talk playoffs. I'm not going to talk about the drivers who've already won this season because for all intents and purposes, those 9 drivers are locked in. William Byron with 3 wins, Kyle Larson with 2, Kyle Busch with 2, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., Tyler Reddick, Joey Logano, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. They all have at least 1 win. They're likely locked into the playoffs. We're not going to talk about them too much today. And for the sake of this video, even Ross Chastain, who doesn't have a win yet this year, he is currently leading the points. If the regular season ended today, because he is the regular season points leader, he would also be locked in. He would get the 10th spot. So in this video, we're going to look at bubble drivers who aren't the regular season points leader and who haven't won a race yet this season. We'll talk a little about their season, how they're sitting in the points, and at the end, I'll tell you which driver is the most likely to fall out of the top 16 and which bubble driver is most likely to race their way in based on what I've seen. Let's begin with a couple of safe picks. Kevin Harvick, who has a staggering 130-point cushion. Stewart-Haas Racing is struggling once again. Kevin Harvick has 4 top 5s. That's more than the rest of the team combined. He's been their lone bright spot once again. Man, I thought he had that Phoenix win in hand, long run speed, and fortunately, it came down to a late race restart, different strategy. He ended up with a top 5 still, but I hope that race, that finish doesn't come back to bite him because Stewart-Haas racing cars don't contend for wins very often anymore. You know, I say that, and I know there's some wacky and controversial circumstances involved, but Kevin Harvick was on the front row for the final restart at Darlington this past weekend, so maybe another chance at a win is very much on the horizon. Kevin Harvick, though, I love where he's at in points. He's making the playoffs in his final season. Let's talk about Ryan Blaney, who also has a pretty big cushion, 111 points. Team Penske has been a little off their game, but Ryan Blaney is doing his job. 0 DNFs, very consistent. I am a little worried because we've seen this story before. Last year, Ryan Blaney barely snuck into the playoffs. He was like 3rd in the regular season standings. Right now, he's 7th. I don't expect 14, 15, 16 different winners, but it's not impossible. If Blaney doesn't get to victory lane, he could very well find himself near the cut line once again, but I think he pulls through. He has a pretty big cushion. Brad Keselowski is plus 95. I really hope that Atlanta race doesn't come back to bite him. If he just moved up a couple more feet, I think he had Logano's run stopped. He played it safe. I guess I can't blame him for that. He's already matched his top 10 total from last season, and his average finish is like 5 positions better. It's been a great turnaround season for Keselowski. I love where he's at. I love where RFK as a team is at because right behind him is Chris Buescher, plus 59. Now Buescher is 14th currently on the grid. We're starting to get into that territory where if a couple of drivers lower in points do grab wins, drivers drivers like Keselowski, Chris Buescher could find themselves right there on the cut line. Very precarious. But for now, at least, I love that both RFK Fords are fairly comfortably inside the top 16. And something that plays to Chris Buescher's strengths are the number of road courses we still have yet to go. There are 4 road courses this summer before the playoffs begin. And Chris Buescher, going back to last season, has finished top 10 in 5 straight road course races. So that bodes well for Chris Buescher. Next up is Bubba Wallace plus 23. That gap getting a whole lot smaller. Is Bubba Wallace starting to heat up though? He's finished 4th and 5th the past 2 weeks, back-to-back top 5s. Just like the previous 2 seasons, Bubba Wallace, that 23 team, got off to kind of a slow start, but this year's start's not as slow as last year's. At this point last year, Bubba Wallace was 22nd in points. Right now he's 15th. So I'm feeling pretty good about Bubba. They typically heat up as the season progresses. If 15th is his floor, shoot, he could point his way up there into the top 12, top 10, could even grab a win before the playoffs begin. I wouldn't be surprised at this point. Holding on to the 16th and final playoff spot currently is Chase Briscoe, plus 5. You look at Chase Briscoe's numbers and the way things are tracking, his season doesn't look all that different from last year, where he made it to the round of 8. But you have to remember, it was the win at Phoenix early last year that got him into the playoffs. Without that win, Briscoe was hovering, I don't know, just outside of the top 16. I did notice that his average starting position this year is like 5 positions worse than last year, which that's just leaving points on the table. In modern NASCAR, track position is key. The cars are more equal than ever. It's difficult to pass. Stage points, you got to get some points in stage 1. You have to qualify better. 2 of the last 3 weeks, Briscoe has started outside the top 30 and has run outside the top 30 for much of the opening stage. They can't keep firing off without any speed. The first driver currently below the cut line, maybe deserves a small asterisk next to his name, but Alex Bowman, minus 5. Bowman has missed the last few weeks due to a back injury he sustained in a sprint car crash. North Wilkesboro this weekend is not a points race, so he's not going to lose any points this weekend. There were talks initially like he could return for the Coca-Cola 600, but right now there is no definite timetable. And earlier this week, Alex Bowman made some comments that, I don't know, kind of raised some concerns, at least with me. He said he's been able to go to the gym and work out some, which is great, but he's also felt pain just doing everyday activities. Here's some of what Bowman said. Quote, "I would say the most painful thing for me is laughing, coughing, sneezing, or trying to sleep. Laying down hurts pretty bad. Standing up and walking around is not so bad. I've been able to walk the whole time, so that's been nice. I've kind of kept myself busy." Bowman went on to say that he's worried about, when the jack drops on a pit stop, how that may feel. He's worried about just strapping himself in and tightening his seat belts. So, I don't know. I'm no doctor. It all comes down to pain tolerance, perhaps. It doesn't sound super likely that Bowman's going to be back for the 600. Like, that's the sport's longest race. Charlotte's not the most grueling track, but that's a long time to be strapped in. I guess I shouldn't speculate, but it doesn't sound for sure that Bowman will be back next week for the 600, so he'll likely lose a few more points at least. If he misses the 600, I'm not that worried about it. It's if he misses like 3 more races or more. Then his points hole will be pretty steep, and I worry about Bowman needing to win to get in. Alex Bowman was very consistent to begin this year, leading the points, but he hasn't shown the same winning speed that his teammates Kyle Larson and William Byron have shown. So as long as the points deficit is small like it is now, I think Alex Bowman makes it in on points. But if he misses a few more races, falls to 30, 40, 50, 60 points back, then I start to worry. Next is Daniel Suarez, minus 13. Now, I haven't studied every moment of every Daniel Suarez race, but what I do know is that they are reeling. Started the year off hot with 3 straight top 10s, but in the previous 10 races, Daniel Suarez only has 1 top 10 finish, and it was at Talladega. I feel for Daniel Suarez. He's had to watch his teammate Ross Chastain steal the show, steal the headlines, both in good and bad ways. But he's got the attention of your team owner, Justin Marks, Chevrolet. They're having conversations. They're trying to work with him, coach him to become the superstar that they know he can be. I don't know. I worry that's a big distraction over at Trackhouse that's not really helping Daniel Suarez. What will help Daniel Suarez, though, are the 4 road courses coming up. Daniel Suarez last year had 3 top 5 on road courses, including a win at Sonoma, which we'll return to here in just a few weeks. So there's reasons to be optimistic, but I am concerned by the slump the 99 team finds themselves in. Let's talk about the rookie Ty Gibbs, 15 points below the cut line currently. He's cooled off a tad since that 4-race top 10 streak, but that's mainly due to that crash at Kansas where he was running inside the top 10. All the Toyotas look good, including Ty Gibbs. He just slipped slightly, spun out, and crashed. So far, though, his rookie season is comparable to Austin Cindric's rookie season last year. And I compare them because they're both young drivers, recent Xfinity champions, who both took over very competitive Cup Series seats. Right now, Ty Gibbs is actually tracking to score more top 10s than Cindric did last year, but Cindric obviously got that win at the Daytona 500, and his average finish was about 2 positions better than Gibbs's has been so far. But that being said, if we just look at the past 9 races for Ty Gibbs, his average finish is right on par with what Cindric was doing last year. So I do think Ty Gibbs is getting better, and getting better reasonably quickly. I like what I've seen from Ty Gibbs. Yes, he's 19th, but he's only 15 points out, and I think they're trending the right direction. Speaking of Austin Cindric, he's 27 points out currently. Unfortunately, he has taken a big step backwards early this season. His average finish is 5 positions worse than last year. He's only got 2 top 10s right now, and one of them, of course, was a road course. We know Austin Cindric is a good road racer. I just am not seeing enough improvement at ovals. I'll give him a small break because I think at most tracks the Fords are lagging at least slightly behind the Chevys and the Toyotas. But, you know, I look at his teammate Ryan Blaney, 7th in points. Joey Logano, I think he's like 12th in the regular season standings. He has a win. And Austin Cindric's back here in 20th with no top 5s. You know, there is a problem there, and I hope they can figure it out sooner rather than later. He has a good average starting position. I looked up, it's 13.2. That's pretty great. You just gotta stay there. You can't fade the moment the green flag drops. I keep talking about road courses. A lot of these drivers right around the cut line are probably looking forward to Sonoma, Watkins Glen later this summer, maybe even Indy Road or the wild card that is Chicago. One of those drivers is definitely Michael McDowell, who has failed to back up his stupendous 2022 effort. Of course, you lose crew chief Blake Harris. I didn't expect McDowell to be that good this year. He hasn't been bad. I mean, he only has 1 top 10 finish compared to 12 last season. But I'll give McDowell some credit for being consistent. Until Darlington this past weekend, where he just got swept up in somebody else's wreck, McDowell had avoided DNFing. He had 0 DNFs all year until Darlington. So that's not bad. That's why he's still in a very respectable points position. If he can rattle off some more top 10s, maybe grab a top 5 at a road course, or there's still, I guess, 2 super speedway races left before the playoffs, McDowell will have his opportunities for sure, but right now they're not showing the consistent speed he showed last year, and I think the crew chief swap, no disrespect to Travis Peterson, I believe, but it's just not the same as what he and Blake Harris found last year. His teammate Todd Gilliland, though, 35 points out, has been very impressive. Granted, I think we all hold second-year driver Todd Gilliland to a lower standard than Michael McDowell, who's been around, who's a veteran. But Todd Gilliland has improved his average finish from last year by 4 spots. And he's already surpassed his top 10 total from last season. He had that great run, 15th at Atlanta, 10th at Coda, 15th at Richmond, 8th at Bristol Dirt. Couple of down weeks, but then finished 11th at a very tough track out in Darlington this past weekend. I mean, I like what I'm seeing, and he's doing it all under a ton of pressure. Todd Gilliland's future with Front Row is far from certain. Heck, they've removed him from his own seat for a few races this year to give Zane Smith some experience. That's awkward. That could be really hard for a young driver to deal with. So the fact that he's putting together these great results with that added pressure on his back is even more impressive. I really like what I'm seeing from Todd Gilliland so far. The final driver I want to talk about, he's much lower in the standings, but he's a big, big name. He's, I think, still considered a championship threat, and that is Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott obviously missed a half a dozen races due to injury. That's why he's 28th in points, 63 points below the cut line, but gosh, stop for a second. Only 63 points? With 13 races to go in a Hendrick car? We talked like Chase Elliott was going to need to win. I think he still will win at some point this summer, but he may not have to. If we take out the opening race this season where he crashed at the Daytona 500, it's the Daytona 500, almost everybody crashes, Chase Elliott hasn't finished worse than 12th in his other 6 starts. He's not leading as many laps as Byron or Larson. He's not running in the top 5 as consistently as Byron or Larson, but he's been good. And he seems to be slowly getting better. Again, I know there were some weird scoring shenanigans at the end of the Darlington race, but he did come home 3rd. I haven't heard him talk much about his leg or his knee, if that's bothering him much at this point, but for all intents and purposes, he looks like himself on the racetrack. Not quite the same dynamic speed we're used to seeing him have, but I think they're getting there. I think they will be there at some point this summer. And again, road courses. I know there's guys like Reddick, Larson, there's a ton of drivers now you have to watch out for on road courses, but Chase Elliott is still near or at the top of that list. So I feel good about Chase Elliott's chances of making the playoffs. I don't think he needs to win. I think there's a real chance he could point his way in. If we get, a couple surprise winners, if a Ty Gibbs were to win, or I just mentioned Michael McDowell, if he were to get a win, then that moves the cut line a little bit further up. That's a little harder to reach. It will get harder the closer Chase Elliott gets to that top 16, but the way things look currently, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of him pointing his way in despite missing 6 races, which would be very, very impressive. Now, before I go, I want to tell you which of the 16 playoff drivers I believe has the best chance of fading and which driver currently outside the top 16 has the best chance of driving their way in. Right now, I think Chase Briscoe, 16th on the playoff grid, only a 5-point cushion. I just don't like where that team is going. They're way too inconsistent for my liking. I don't really trust Stewart Haas. They did have those 3 straight top 5s when Briscoe was racing with a broken finger. They've kind of struggled ever since. I mentioned them firing off with 30th place speed multiple times in the past few weeks. That's just not okay. If anyone in the top 16 right now were to fall out, I think Briscoe's in the most precarious point situation, and I just don't think that team is trending positively at the moment. So Briscoe would be the driver I'm most skeptical of. As far as the drivers below him who could race their way in and take his place, Alex Bowman would be my pick, but after his recent comments, we don't know. When will he return? If he returns for Charlotte, if Alex Bowman is back in a week and races the 600, then yes, I think he'll point his way in. He's my pick. But I'm not so sure now that he'll be back in time for Charlotte. Maybe the week after, but if he misses 2 or 3 more races and falls further and further down the standings, I get a little worried. I'm going to say Ty Gibbs. Sure, he's 19th right now. He's a rookie. I get it. But I like where he's going. I think he is slowly trending upwards. After a noisy, controversial Xfinity Series season last year, Ty Gibbs has done exactly what he needs to do this year. He's kept his head down. He's been focused. He said all the right things. I think he's earned respect from his new competitors in the Cup Series, and he's steadily getting better. Again, he was top 10, maybe even top 5 speed at Kansas a couple weeks ago until he did make a mistake and spin out. But every week he's consistently in the top 15 now, it seems like, and I think by the end of this summer he'll be consistently in the top 10. And unless we get a bunch of surprise winners, I think that's good enough to point your way into the playoffs this year. So I really like the trajectory that Ty Gibbs is currently on. But now I want to hear from you. How do you feel about the 2 RFK Fords? Do you think they'll hold on to playoff spots? What about Kevin Harvick? Is he going to extend that points lead even further? Bubble drivers like Bubba Wallace, Chase Briscoe, will they make the playoffs? Will somebody behind them, like Alex Bowman if he comes back from injury? Chase Elliott, could he point his way all the way back into the top 16? Ty Gibbs, Daniel Suarez, the list goes on. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I appreciate you tuning in. I will see you all at North Wilkesboro this weekend. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like. I appreciate it. If you're new to the channel and you love NASCAR, hit that subscribe button down below to stay in the loop. And thank you to my Patreon supporters as always. 3 p.m. on Sunday, you can find me at the Moonshine and Motorsports Trail booth at North Wilkesboro Speedway. Thanks for watching, y'all. I'll see you again real soon.